Okay, so model railways have come quite a long way. Even in the past 10 years, we've seen quite a lot of developments and changes made to the hobby in general, especially in terms of what we get with our rolling stock and locomotives. You go back another 10 years from that, and then you have things like DCC coming through, as well as other innovations as well. But I'm not convinced. I don't think that they've all been a innovation. I do think some of the things we see on models now are just a gimmick, really. I think they don't necessarily add anything to the model other than just a lackluster gimmick, and that's it. There's no other way to word it, I'm afraid. And I'm certainly not poking fun at any manufacturer in general, because I believe they're all guilty of at least one gimmicky thing. So what I've done is I've sat down and I've made a list. I've made a list of things and features from model railways and hobbies and manufacturers and locomotives that have come about in the past 10, 15 years or so that I believe to be either a gimmick or an innovation. Now, I'm quite sure a lot of you will disagree with almost everything I say, and that's fine. You let me know what you think in the comments below. And this isn't really in any particular order. This is just as they sort of came to me on the list. So I'm going to rattle through them now and give you a little bit of information as to why I think these particular things are a gimmick or why they're an innovation. Let's begin. First on the list, opening doors. Now, you could argue that if you wanted the doors to open up on your Mark V coaches, that you have passengers going on and off. But of course, then you don't, do you? Door opens up and nothing happens. No one gets off of it, and no one walks in. So why is it happening? Why the mechanic's been put in there just so you can do that and go, look at that, oh that's pretty. Then it closes. For what? Why? It doesn't add anything. It just, apart from cost and expense to the model. Same thing with cab doors on locomotives. There's I think it's the Hornby Class 8. You can open the cab door. The Dapol Class 68. You can open the doors. The Dapol 59. The door opens a millimetre, 2 millimetre, like that. It doesn't even open fully. So it's not like you can even open it enough to put a figure in there like he's hanging out the door or whatever. It's absolutely pointless. Now that must have added something to the cost of the tooling or the creation of that model. It must have done. It can't just be a case of, yeah, do you know what, that costs an extra penny, we'll do that. Why? I fail to understand why having an opening door on a model locomotive adds anything in terms of operations or believability, even in terms of modelling, what you can model from it. In terms of modelling a scene, it has nothing because you can't even open the door the whole way. So for me, opening doors are a gimmick. Don't need them, moving on. Second on the list is spinning roof fans. Now, first off, fans don't always spin. Okay, so it's perfectly adequate for you to have a model locomotive with a static fan. Doesn't need to spin all the time. They don't spin all the time. They only spin every so often. Second of all, unless you're stood peering over your model, you won't be able to see it. Thirdly, if you've got DCC Sound fitted to one of your models, and that will make an appearance on this list later on, but for now let's just consider you spent 60 quid on a Hornby TXS decoder, for example. Sometimes the fan motors can be so loud they drown out the sound of the sound. So you can't fully hear what's going on with the model because of this little fan motor going, and that it has to add a level of engineering to a model that it doesn't need. I can honestly sit here and say that I've never felt, do you know what, I wish the fan was spinning on that. For me, spinning roof fans, total gimmick. Unnecessary. Why include it? It doesn't need to happen. Just a nicely detailed fan is enough. A nicely detailed fan is plenty enough to get the imagination working and put you in the zone. So in closing, roof fans, spinning roof fans for that matter, not a requirement. Gimmick. Moving on. Next on the list is automatic uncoupling. Now, as long-term viewers of my channel will know, this is something I've had to play with a few times. I've tried the Brian Kirby method, where you put a little paper clip on the back of the tension lock and magnets on the track, and that worked pretty well, not without its faults. A bit fizzly to set up. KD couplings, again, I've tried to get them to work properly, and if the gearbox type couplings you've got for KDs, the ones where the arms just move like this, they're fixed rigid to the chassis of the local or the wagon, then they do work better than the NEM ones. The problem I found with the NEM ones is where the NEM pockets are designed is they have the little dovetails and they move a little bit. The problem with that is when you've got the tail coming off of the KD, so you've got the knuckle and you've got the tail that comes off the bottom there, as it goes over the magnet, it doesn't just move it left and right, it pulls it down. So the coupling sticks to the floor and it can't uncouple. It does work with the fixed type ones. So for example, I've got some here. So if you see you've got the fixed type here, where it can't physically move down. It can move up a little bit, but it doesn't go any lower than that. That will move fine. But if it was an NEM pocket one, that would physically go down and adjust the track. So great if you can get it to work, to quote Judge Dredd. So I'm not gonna say gimmick and I'm not gonna say innovation. I'm gonna say it's a 50-50, and it depends heavily on your setup and your ability and which route you decide to go down for automatic uncoupling. Personally, I think automatic uncoupling is a little bit. I get it, it's good because you'd have to get up and run around and everything else, but in the real world, if you're trying to operate a locomotive prototypically, they don't uncouple on their own. Most of them require a bloke or two going up to them and unhooking things and all that stuff. So for me, it's 50-50. Next up, engine room lights. Please tell me what that adds to the functionality of a model. Please tell me. Because I can honestly tell you, as I'm sat here now, in the 37 years I've graced this earth with my presence, and the amount of time I've spent at railway stations and at galas and preserved railways, I have never once have I seen the engine room lights illuminated on a locomotive. Never once have I seen it. Now I'm sure they come on at a depot scene or whatever, but would that LED you've put in there not be better served somewhere else on a function on a locomotive that you will see running every day? For example, a tail lamp, that might work better. So for me, I'm going to say engine room lights, just unnecessary. It's just adding something to the model to hike the price up. Might be a little bit cynical, fine, whatever. That's just my opinion on the matter. I can live with that engine room lights, to be honest with you. Gimmick. Sprung buffers. Now, if you're a sadist and you like making things as difficult as possible and enjoy knocking your models over with your ham-fisted paws and modifying your models to fit out-of-scale chains on them, then 3-link couplings might be for you. Now, if you have 3-link couplings, then sprung buffers actually do serve a purpose, a functional purpose, because when locomotives propel their trains around tight bends, the buffers will buffer up like in real life, and they will compress to allow the wagons and roller stock to go around those tighter curves. So I'm going to say for sprung buffers, again, it's going to be a bit of a cop-out, and I'm going to say 50-50, because looking at a locomotive running around, if you've got a fixed type of coupling like a tension lock or magnetic couplings or a KD, the distance between the buffers is always more or less set. It never really gets close to touching, so it's pointless. it does nothing. It doesn't affect how they look. You can get nice, really nice detailed turned metal buffers that look absolutely fantastic, look as real as they need to look, but they don't add anything. So unless you're a sadist and you're running 3-link couplings and you want to do all that nonsense, I would say sprung buffers, they don't need to be on your models. I think it's something I can quite happily live without. Gimmick-ish. Now, synthetic, steam and diesel. And now I may be on my own with this, and I'm not talking about live steam because that is a different kettle of fish altogether. Kettle. Anyway, for me, when I see a 00 or an N gauge or even an O gauge locomotive and it's got synthetic steam or smoke or whatever, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't behave like real steam, and that's because it isn't real steam. it's more or less a, for lack of a better word, a smoke vapour, and you can see that because it wisps out, it wisps it, and it does all this, and it doesn't act like real steam. You look at our real steam engine, look, it's pluming everywhere, and it's absolutely, it eviscerates the view of the locomotive, especially on colder days. And the model version just doesn't get a better result, I think. Smoking a cigar and just blowing smoke onto your model. At least that's real smoke. So for me, I'm going to say leave the smoke units out. It looks horrible. I don't like it. And I absolutely resent having to pay for it on the model. I like the model, but I don't want that feature. And it's all very well saying, well, we'll do one with and one without, but then the price for the one with is only 30 quid more than the one without. But you're still going to have to tool the one without to accept the smoke unit, because you're not going to make two different models, are you? You're going to make one and either fit the smoke unit or don't. So there's still some cost for the smoke unit in the non-smoke fitted unit itself. So I just don't understand it. It's not for me. I'm going to say gimmick. Now, DCC Sound. If automatic uncoupling and steam and everything else is a gimmick, how come DCC Sound isn't a gimmick, Craig? Well, I'll tell you why. Locomotives hiss and burble and thrash and clank and squeal and squeak and everything else, a bit like me after a couple of glasses of the old Jim Beam there. When you're sat running your trains, you can hear them rolling along the rails, and you hear the faint clickety-clack, clickety-clack and all the rest of it, and then it just stops dead. It doesn't make that brake squeal, it doesn't let the brakes off. The sound really does add another level to the experience, because it's not like the sound doesn't sound exactly like the locomotive, because it does. They record them from the actual locomotive, so it sounds exactly the same. It's not like steam where it's just, they sound a lot better than the steam looks, in my opinion. Sound is absolutely an innovation. I first bought a sound fitted locomotive about 3 years ago. It was a Class 37 which had been butchered on eBay, but it was 60 quid. And it came with a TTS sound decoder on it. And from that day forth, I thought I can no longer live this hobby without sound fitted in everything I come across. So, DCC Sound, absolutely an innovation. Lock detection and automation. Now, I understand why a lot of people would sit there and think, well, it's a gimmick because I want to run my railway myself. I want to be able to decide where things go, when they do it, and how they do it. And that is absolutely fine. I agree with you. However, if you are a differently abled person, consider that you don't have the full range of movement that somebody else does. What you could do is use DCC Automation to have your trains running around the layout, all controlled by a computer system. And you could sit it a little bit, pretty much like what I have here, doing small shunting operations, where you've got the rest of your layout looking after itself. And that is all down to DCC Automation. Things like block detection and ABC sections and Arduinos and everything else. Yes, it's a little bit complicated and it does take a little bit of forethought before we can get it working, but it adds so much to the hobby and how you run trains. It will change how you see the hobby and how you run your trains. So for me, DCC Automation and block detection is fantastic, and it absolutely is a massive, massive innovation. Now, finally, the biggest gimmick I can think of. Before I get into it, I'm going to just whack lyrical for a second now. Sprung buffers and smoke and DCC sound and all and opening cab doors and engine room lights. Yes, I personally think they are a bit gimmicky, and I think models can do without them just fine. But I can at least understand why they're there. I can at least understand why you might want to see a spinning roof fan, or why you might want a door to open 2mm, or why you might want engine room light to come on and illuminate a piece of white plastic behind a piece of perspex. Fine, I can get that. But what I cannot get behind, what I cannot understand, no matter how hard I try, is under frame detail. Please tell me what benefits it is to me knowing that the underside of that locomotive is completely accurate to the real thing when I can't see it. I can't see it. Even if I look like this, I cannot see the underside of that Class 70. I do not know what's going on under there. It could have anything under there. I would not have a clue about it. And yet, for some reason, it's become sort of an arms race. I think, to quote Jenny, she said recently, it's become a bit of an arms race, and I absolutely agree with her. Manufacturers seem to be running out of ideas and reasons and excuses as to why their model should cost you 230 quid, with nothing else to add anymore. Details come as far as it needs to come on the outside of the model without encumbering and inhibiting running on a model on a layout, because that's what they are. They're not real locomotives. The physics is slightly different at this scale, so you have to make some allowances for getting around second and third radius curves. I get that, that's fine. So you're sat there, you're trying to figure out how you can make your company charge more for this model. Yes, you can use the excuse of inflation and production costs have gone up for this model we've had tooling for the past 15 years. But how can you squeeze a few more quid from people? Well, it's quite simple. Take your wagon and put really ridiculous underframe detail on it. So there we go, like that. What good is that? I can't see that, you can't see that. And that's just one of the examples. There's some models coming out now and the price on them is absolutely outrageous, and they've got underframe detail. Now, a lot of manufacturers will tell you it doesn't add anything to the cost. It's included in the cost, and that may be the case for some of it. But it's not only about the fact that it might have the most detailed underframe in the world, it makes it harder to work on the models. So you have to service them, you have to flip them upside down, you've got a keeper plate covered in brake piping, rigging and air brake and everything else. You've got to take that off before you can get to things. And inevitably you're going to snap it. I know that because I've done that myself, despite being as careful as I can, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have done the same. You will have undoubtedly snapped a mounting peg and had to glue it back on and it looks a mess. Or you just do what I do and don't bother fitting the optional underframe detail because it is pointless, absolutely unnecessary. Massive, biggest gimmick I can think of. I didn't ask for it, I don't want it. Well, there we are then. That's me done ranting for a week. Manufacturers, if you're out there watching this, please don't take it as a personal affront to you and who you are and what you do. It's not meant as that. It's just my thoughts, me rambling at a camera, that's all it is. But at the same time, I am a modeller, I am part of the customer base. There's a lot of people that agree with me, a lot of people disagree with me, but a lot of people do agree with me. I don't think we need to be seeing sprung buffers and super detailed underframes and engine room lights and cab doors you can open 2mm and spinning roof fans. I don't think we need to be seeing that on the models. Hornby's railroad range is fantastic because it doesn't have all those silly features on them, but it's still not great because the models are still quite crude and they have traction tyres. There needs to be something between a Hornby railroad and a, let's say, for example, a Batman Class 47 super detail. There needs to be something in between for about between 80 and 150 quid where you've got detail and it's good, and if you want to add more you can do, but you don't have to worry about things like traction tyres and poor running. But that's just me, that's just a theory, a train theory. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, folks. I know it's been a bit of a ranty one this week. I've not had a lot of time to get things going on. Things have been a bit hectic at home. We've had a bit of a family thing to sort out. I won't go into details, but it's been a bit upsetting, I think. So this is what you've got this week, so enjoy it. But I really do want to know what you folks think. Please, let's have a conversation in the comments below. Try and keep it civil, okay? We're not here to start flame wars and arguments, but I am genuinely interested in what you guys think. Any manufacturers watching, please do step in, let me know. Please tell me why you guys feel you need to have a detailed smoke box interior with all the right markings and grillings on the inside, which we'll never see. Please tell me why it's necessary. I'd love to hear from you all. And for that's me done for this week, guys. I will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to drop a like and a subscribe and all that good jazz. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.